Hello students and welcome. Our today's lecture is Macaulays Minute and Bentincks Resolution, and the objectives set for the present lecture are to understand the Macaulays Minute of Indian education system, to know the Macaulays Role on controversy of interpretation of Charter Act of 1813 and the national system of education, to know the main aim of introducing English system of education in India, to know what downward filtration is all about, to know about the orders of resolution of Lord William Bentinck, to know the merits of resolution of Macaulay's Minute, to know demerits of resolution of Macaulay's Minute. Let us first start with a brief introduction. Thomas Babington Macaulay, who is generally regarded as the architect of system of education in India during the British rule, was a great essayist, historian, linguist, orator, politician, statesman and thinker. He was regarded as one of the first-rate literary figure of his times. As a parliamentarian, he made his remark in British Parliament. He came to India in 1838 and joined as a lawmaker of the Executive Council of the Governor-General. He was also appointed as the President of General Committee on Public Instruction by Governor-General Lord William Bentinck. Macaulay wrote his famous minute on February 2, 1835, in which he vehemently criticized almost everything Indian: astronomy, culture, history, philosophy, religion, etc., and praised everything Western. On this basis, he advocated the national system of education for India, which could best serve the interest of British Empire. His minutes were accepted and Lord William Bentinck issued his proclamation on March 1835, which set at rest all the controversies and led to the formulation of a policy which became the cornerstone of all educational programs during the British period in India. The beginning of the state system of education in India under the British rule may be traced back to the year 1813, when the East India Company was compelled by the force of circumstances to accept responsibility for the education of Indians. Clause 43 of the Charter Act of 1813, which stated, "It shall be lawful for the Governor-General in Council to direct that out of any surplus which may remain of rents, revenues, and profits arising from the said territorial acquisitions, after defraying the expenses of the military, civil, and commercial establishment, and paying the interest of the debt, in manner hereinafter provided, a sum of not less than 1 lakh of rupees in each year shall be set apart and applied to the revival and improvement of literature and encouragement of the learned natives of India and for the introduction and promotion of knowledge of the sciences among the inhabitants of the British territories in India." The Charter Act of 1813 did not specify the methods to secure the objects of revival and improvement of nature, the encouragement of learned natives of India, and the introduction and promotion of knowledge of sciences among the inhabitants of British territories in India. The vagueness of Clause 43 of the Charter Act 1813 intensified the Oriental Occidentals educational issue. Now students, Macaulay's role on controversy of interpretation of Charter Act of 1813 and the national education system. First, aim of education of the British policy. whether it should be to educate the classes in higher branches of learning or the masses in elementary education. Number 2, type of knowledge, whether to preserve and promote Oriental learning or to introduce Western knowledge, culture and science. Number 3, medium of instruction, whether English or Persian and Sanskrit in Bengal, English or Indian languages in Bombay and Madras should become the medium of instruction. Agency of education, whether the government should assume direct responsibility of educating the Indians or the indigenous system of the country to continue. Number 5, missionaries, whether the shores of India to be thrown open to missionaries or all parts of the world to promote education or to a few missionaries or not at all. There were important English officers of the East India Company who were the supporters of the Oriental point of view. H.T. Prinsep, who was the Education Secretary in Bengal and also the leader of the Orientalist group. On the contrary, some prominent Indian like Raja Ram Mohan Roy supported the Anglicist, who were in favor of English and Western learning. Now, dear students, let us know about the downward filtration theory. The British rulers in India thought that in order to run the administration peacefully and smoothly, it was essential to make higher classes blind followers of the Britishers. This they wanted to achieve through educating the classes to be filtered to the common. Drop by drop, the education would go to the common public, so that in due time it may take form of a vast stream, which remained water desert of the society, starved for water for a long time, and a high class of people would be educated and common people would gain influence from them. This theory was based on the 3 factors which are similar and have yet an individual significance of their own. These were, first, to consolidate the rule by educating the upper classes and giving them high posts. Number 2, to educate the upper classes through the medium of English, because their way of living and their culture would have repercussion on the lower classes. Thus, the education of the lower classes would be catered for automatically. Number 3, to pass on the responsibility of education of the masses to a few educated person, be they of upper or lower class. With other multifarious problems of education, the British were faced in the beginning of the 19th century with the question whether education should be for the masses or for persons of a particular class. The British gradually arrived at the conclusion that education should be only for the upper classes. The evidence which is provided by the instructions set by the directors of the company in 1828, as also by the statements of Macaulay. Macaulay had observed, "We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in tastes, in morals and in intellect." Macaulay did not stop here, but expressed his views again on July 31, 1837, by saying that at that time their object was not to educate the masses, but to create such a group which could disseminate the acquired knowledge among others and thus could redeem their hopes. The Bengal Committee of Public Instruction also endorsed Macaulay's view in 1839 and observed that their aim should be to educate only the upper and middle classes, who could pass on the torch of education to the lower classes. The religious missionaries, also with this end in view, founded schools for the education of the upper classes. They were impelled by their religion and had nothing to do with politics. They were of the view that the middle and lower classes were guided by the upper classes and followed the example set by them. And hence, if they could convert the upper classes to their religion, then the lower would follow the same. They could not achieve success because the religion of the Indians was in no way inferior to that of missionaries. And secondly, the schools were opened not for religion but for imparting secular education. Consequently, the classes for religion had no enrollment, although due to poverty, the children of the lower classes occasionally attended them. Now, what was the effect of downward filtration theory? People of higher class were recruited to English posts, and some of them were introduced in higher administration as well. People came to know about various happenings about the world in 18th and 19th century. They came to know about various freedom movements of USA and France, given a sense of freedom from British. Spreading of education was done by various Christian missionaries. They could influence only the people of lower class, and most of the people were unaffected by missionaries. Somewhere it boosted Renaissance in India through various organizations like Brahma Samaj by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Now, why downward filtration theory failed? This theory could well serve the ends of Macaulay, but not of education. In the beginning, the English educated Indians underwent a change in their way of living and of thought, and they drifted away from the commonality because they easily got government jobs and thus became favorite subjects of the British government. Hence, due to lack of time, as also due to the feeling of pride, they could not mix with the masses. The consequence of all this was that education of the lower classes was neglected. Another reason for the neglect of mass education was that only English educated persons were given high posts, and then they worked tooth and nail to earn money. Only they could amass wealth, and their children only received education. This theory of downwards filtration could not hold ground for long. We may cite two main reasons for its failure. First, gradually the number of English schools multiplied, and with this a large number of persons were becoming educated. The government could not provide jobs to all these, and hence they built English schools for earning their livelihood. Thus, due to the large number of schools and teachers, the needs of the masses could be satisfied. Some of the broad-minded Indians who had received English education but who retained their love of the motherland were not attracted towards government jobs and other such temptations, and sacrificing all their personal facilities. They opened school for this purpose. Consequently, the masses also got an opportunity of receiving education. Yet the filtration theory continued to hold good somewhat till 1870. In fact, the credit for education of the masses goes to the independent schools, although those who had received the higher English education also had a hand in this, either due to selfish interest or due to the spirit of benevolence. Due to mass education, a wave of national awakening soon became strong and spread throughout the length and breadth of the country. Hence, it would not be wrong to give to these schools the credit for reconstruction of India. Now, Bentincks Resolution. Lord William Henry Cavendish Bentinck, born on 14 September 1774, known as Lord William Bentinck, was a British soldier and statesman. Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor-General of British-occupied India. On his return to England, Bentinck served in the House of Commons for some years before being appointed Governor-General of Bengal in 1828. His principal concern was to turn around the loss-making East India Company to ensure that its charter would be renewed by the British government. Now, facts about Lord William Bentinck. It was during his term as Governor of Madras that the Vellore Mutiny took place, prompted by his order that the Indian troops be denied permission to wear traditional dress. As a result, he was recalled in 1807. His career in the army continued. He was also a member of the House of Commons. In 1828, he was appointed the Governor-General, India Company. He was able to bring about a sound financial management system for the company, but the process was also accompanied by a policy of westernization. He was also influenced by Jeremy Bentham's and James Mill's utilitarian principles. Bentinck revised the court system as well as educational system. In 1831, William Bentinck took control of Mysore on the grounds of misgovernance. He passed the English Education Act 1835 that replaced Persian with English in the higher courts. He also advocated Indians to be educated in the Western style so that more Indians could be employed in the administration. He opened the Calcutta Medical College in 1835 and it became the first Western medical school in all of Asia, where people could be admitted irrespective of caste and creed. Along with Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Bentinck tried to suppress many superstitious practices prevalent then. Sati, the practice of widow burning, was abolished by the Bengal Regulation on 4th December 1829. He also tried to control, with Ram Mohan Roy's advocacy, practices like polygamy, child marriages, and caste rigidity. The Charter Act of 1833 was passed in his tenure. This act marks the centralization in India's administration and also made provisions for the inclusion of Indians in government service. This also made Bentinck the first Governor-General of India. Bentinck also did commendable job of controlling organized thuggery. Thugs were gangs of professional thieves and even murderers that had created a thug law and order problem. Thugging was finished off by 1837. He reformed the military by banning flogging as a punishment in the British Indian Army. He was a Governor-General of India till 20th March 1835. Lord Bentinck died on 17 June 1839 in Paris. Lord William Bentinck accepted Macaulays Minute or Opinions towards the language of education for India on March 7, 1835. Now, what are the orders of resolution of Bentincks? First, Lord William Bentinck was of the opinion that the great object of the British government ought to be the promotion of European literature and science among the natives of India, and that all the funds appropriated for the purpose of education would be best employed on English education alone. He had no intention to abolish any college or school of native learning, but no stipend shall be given to any student that may hereafter enter any of these institutions. And when any professor or oriental learning shall vacate his situation, the committee shall report to the government the number and state of the class in order that the government may be able to decide upon the expediency of appointing a successor. It has come to the knowledge of the Governor General in Council that a large sum has been expended by the Committee on the Printing of Oriental Works. Lord William directs that no portion of the funds shall hereafter be so employed. Lord William Bentinck directed that all the funds which these reforms will leave at the disposal of the committee be henceforth employed in imparting to the native population a knowledge of English literature and science through the medium of the English language, and his lordship in council request committee to submit to government with the all expedition plan for the accomplishment of this purpose. Now, essence of the resolution of Lord William Bentinck. The Bentinck policy made the resolution of Macaulay's Vive on the stress of English language as a medium of instruction. In the orders of Bentinck policy, the whole focus was given to invest all the expenditure of education in improvement of English literature and science only. The resolution which was made by Bentinck ordered to ban for investing any fund on the printing of Oriental works. One of the orders of the resolution was that a vacant post of any teacher in Oriental learning would be filled only after the government finds it expedient. Thus, these orders which are discussed were made the confirmation in implementing the English as a medium of instruction. As a result of the resolution, there were established Zilla schools in the principal towns of the presidencies, where literature and science presidencies were taught through the medium of English language. The policy of Lord William Bentinck in the field of higher education made obstacle to invest any expenditure on vernacular teaching. As a result of this policy, in government vernacular schools, the use of vernacular language as a medium of instruction was prohibited. Now, what was the main aim of introducing English system of education in India? Macaulay wrote in his minute, "We must at present do our best to form a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, and English in taste, opinions, in morals, and in intellect." Macaulay's argument in favor of English. Macaulay rejected the claims of Arabic and Sanskrit as against English because he considered that English was better than either of them. His arguments in favor of English were: number one, it is the key to modern knowledge and is therefore more useful than Arabic or Sanskrit. Number two, it stands preeminent even among the language of the West in India. English is a language sponsored by the ruling class. It is likely to become the language of commerce throughout the seas of the East. Number 3, it would bring about Renaissance in India, just as Greek or Latins did in England, or just as the language of Western Europe in civilized Russia. Number 4, the natives are desirous of being taught English and are not eager to learn Sanskrit or Arabic. Number 5, it is possible to make the natives of this country good English scholars, and to that end our efforts ought to be directed. Number 6, it was impossible to educate the body of the people, but it was possible through English education to bring about a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, and English in taste, opinions in morals and in intellect, and that education was to filter down from them to the masses. Now, acceptance of minute by Lord William Bentinck. Lord William Bentinck endorsed the minute by writing one line beneath it. I give my entire concurrence to the sentiments expressed in the minutes. He passed the resolution of March 1835, which determined the age, content and medium of instruction in India. Now, what are its merits? First, a clear-cut picture of the national system of education in India emerged. Number 2, the system proved very helpful in promoting the objectives for which it was planned. Number 3, English schools began to be established. Number 4, English became the medium of instruction. Number 5, Western arts and sciences became popular. Number 6, filtration theory of education emerged. Now its demerits. Number 1, Indian culture and philosophy receded to the background. Number 2, vernacular languages began to be neglected. Number 3, mass education was neglected. Number 4, Western culture made rapid strides. Number 5, Arabic and Sanskrit languages found very few takers. Number 6, Arabic maktabs and Sanskrit pathshalas saw gradual disappearance. Now, students, let us conclude. Macaulay wrote his famous minute on February 2nd, 1835, in which he vehemently criticized almost everything Indian: astronomy, culture, history, philosophy, religion, etc., and praised everything Western. On this basis, he advocated the national system of education for India, which could best serve the interest of the British Empire. A sum of not less than 1 lakh of rupees in each year shall be set apart and applied to revival and improvement of the literature and encouragement of the learned natives of India, and for the introduction and promotion of knowledge of sciences among the inhabitants of British territories in India. With the commencement of the 19th century, the Englishmen were advocating the downwards filtration theory, but in the beginning it had no effect on the general education. Having attained the higher education, a few patriots opened private schools, some in order to restore the Indian literature and language, and others for their livelihood. Thus, education could be made available to all in general. That brings us to the end of this lecture. Thank you and goodbye.